All right, now we're live. Hello.
Oh, hey. Okay, this is really cool because I've been chomping at the bit a little bit to get you to talk to me about this heart virtue thing. Did you explain it so much better because it's your thing? And I get it, but it's not my baby. It's not my creation. So I'm Michelle Terrell, and I am a relationship coach. I help men with their empowerment work, getting their self-discovery journey dialed up through their relationship with women, how they're relating to women. So that's what I do. And then I started following you on Facebook and getting a lot of great insight from that. We became colleagues. We started collaborating on things, and then you've been in a position of coaching me and vice versa. So I consider you my coach, my colleague, and my friend. But I have a little bio here that I'm going to read because I want to ask you a little bit more about this heart virtue thing, and then and I want people to know who you are. So I wrote it down. That looks like a lot of words. It's not all that. Okay, so this is my friend Kundan. And
Breakthrough Awakening Kundan.
You like the whole thing? I have to say the whole thing? Breakthrough Awakening Kundan? Okay, all right. It doesn't say that on Facebook anymore. So, all right. Breakthrough Awakening Kundan. He provides this, an art, a service, or I don't know what to call it, but this emotional alchemy that you do. And the definition I have of it here is the art of transforming your emotional pain into the fuel for your passion and life purpose. Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to talk about this, how life purpose and heart virtue all connect. So he does this via a process he's coined called Breakthrough Awakening. He also helps you unlock your heart virtue, which is what we're going to talk about today. And this is what gives me chills about this. This is the most important, heroic, I love that word, part of yourself. And that you've got to get to know this in an intimate way to have an amazing life. And so that's what this Breakthrough Awakening is. Leaders and luminaries, people that are leadership around the world, people like Deva Premal. And she's a world-renowned singer. I chanted to her when I was giving birth. Just like an amazing way to get connected with presence. Her work, and endorsed by Chicken Soup for the Soul co-founder Mark Victor Henson. And then you just recently, depending on when you see this video, released a course called 7 Keys to Resolving Conflicts in Relationships. And I'm proud to say I had a little tiny bit to do with helping refine that, which has turned out so well. And you can find that published on the Daily Alm platform. And that's a popular website that reaches 1.2 million subscribers. That's a lot. That's getting the word out. So this is fantastic. So thank you for meeting with me and talking to me a little bit so we can continue to get the word out about heart virtues. What that is, define what is heart virtue? What does that mean?
Heart virtue. So yeah, thank you for that warm introduction. So your heart virtue is, well, in secular terms, in non-spiritual terms, it is your deepest value that you were born with, that you stood for your entire life, even though you don't know it yet. And it's something you're even willing to die for. So, for example, Martin Luther King Jr.'s heart virtue was brotherhood. And you can tell by his life that that is what he stood for. And that's what differentiates the heroes of history from the rest of us. They were living their heart virtues. That's what made them heroes. And that's why knowing your heart virtue is the most heroic part of you. So another example is Mother Teresa. Her heart virtue was compassion. And again, you can tell it so clearly, like looking at her life, this is what she stood for.
Okay, so we know this is connected to core values.
Yeah.
But first, take us into how does this connect to relationships, relating to other human beings, our most important relationships, our intimate relationships. Like, let's talk about that first, and then let's get into how this connects to core values versus preferences, that sort of thing.
Right. So at a deeper level, your heart virtue is more than just a core value. It's kind of who you are actually at your core. It's almost like the unique energy signature of your heart. So in spiritual terms, it's more than a core value. And so I feel that when it comes to intimate relationships, especially the romantic kind, there are two kinds of romantic relationships in the world, usually. One is what I would call just programs and hormones fitting each other perfectly. So this is why in psychology they say that we end up falling in love with our mothers and fathers, in a sense. So that's what I would call the shallow kind, and that's what creates suffering, because what ends up happening is that at first it's the programs that fit each other, but the programs also trigger each other and push each other's buttons. But there is a deeper kind of romantic love experience, which is actually the very opposite. It's, in fact, the same as the awakening experience. In fact, I've done an entire separate interview with my friend Rohit Jonija on this topic as well, where what happens is you see the true self of another person, and you see how amazing that is, and you fall in love with that.
Would it repeat that? The truth?
The true self.
The true self.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And their true self is also your true self. So what's really happening is you're experiencing your own awakening.
Yeah.
And you end up falling in love with that. And what differentiates it from regular awakening is that there is love in it, so it's more sustainable. Whereas usually awakening is a very mental thing. Whereas with the romantic love kind of awakening, there is love in it, which makes it sustainable. And then what ends up happening usually for a lot of people, even in that kind of relationship, is the ego steps in and thinks, oh, it's the other person that's giving me this experience. So they get attached to that person because they thought the other person gave them the experience. But so it's really their own awakening that's happening.
Got it.
So in terms of heart virtues, what I feel is that what's really happening in this second type of romantic love experience is your heart virtue falls in love with the other person's heart virtue, and they start aligning. Because unlike the other types of love experiences, such as platonic love, familiar, love for family, agape love, spiritual love for everybody, romantic love is the only kind of love that is very specific. You're specifically loving somebody. Even when it comes to, open relationships and polyamory, people who love more than one person, they're still loving, specific people specifically. And what's happening is you're specifically loving their heart virtue. That's what's happening. And that's why it's so important to know your heart virtue.
Got it. Okay. So just a question on that. You said sustainable.
Yeah.
So it's more sustainable because it's immersed in this motivation.
Yeah.
Like you're getting a constant feedback.
Right.
Specific.
Yeah.
So it's when you were speaking about it, I was thinking in terms of like it's the soil it can grow in.
Yeah.
Or even the fuel that keeps it moving.
Right.
So there's a volition and a nurturing combo kind of that happens in that specific kind of relating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost like that statement that love is not two people looking at each other, it's two people looking in the same direction.
Wow. So what are the two people looking at each other? Would that be the chemical piece where you think it's the other person giving
right,
you?
Exactly, yeah.
I have to have it because it can only happen with you.
Right.
You're the one generating it.
Yeah.
And then the looking forward is two separate people combining their vision
Yeah.
in the world, becoming more potent and powerful together,
Right.
looking forward with vision.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm starting to get this. This is good.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So that brings us to, what the heck's the core value? And why, how is that connected to, how did you phrase it about the heart? Like it's a charge in your heart that is like a spark in your heart that's you.
It's almost like a handprint. I would call it the heart print. Like it's so unique. It's the unique energy signature of your heart, like a signature.
Energy signature of your heart.
Yeah.
I just want that to sink in for a minute. Because it's there. You're born with your fingerprints.
Yeah.
So it's there. It's just a matter of discovering it, breaking through, waking up to it.
Mm-hmm. Got
it. Breakthrough awakening. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So core values. And what, let's go into that a little deeper. The discovering your core values and your purpose gets very caught up in like how you're expressing in the world. Yeah. And not coming back to that unique signature in your heart. Right. Necessarily. So people get that disconnect happening. So how did those connect in your mind and work? Right. So what my mentor Greg says is that your values and possibly even your core values can change because they come from family and society, whereas a virtue is something that never changes. Okay. So that's the main difference. And I believe what you call core values might be a little bit deeper than the regular values. And I think the core values are the top layers of the onion of the heart virtue. Because I feel that your heart virtue is the most important part of yourself. But ironically, most people have a blind spot around their heart virtue. Because when you were young, right, what's the number one thing that you hear as a child? It's the word no, right? And it's so painful to know what's most deeply meaningful to you and not be able to go after it, that we stop going after it. Yes. It's painful to watch other people when you can see they've got a blind spot to it. Yeah. And you can see their beauty and their purpose and their potential and that they've got a call in their life for something and they can't see it. It's painful to witness that. Yeah, on our end too. Yeah, it's painful to witness that too. Yeah. So I believe that the top layers of the onions, the core values can be discovered on your own because most people do know the general direction of their heart virtue, the general theme. And in fact, what I've discovered is most heart virtues fall under about 6 to 8 general themes. I think it's something like there's empowerment, creativity, connection, freedom, love, communion, something along those, it's always something along those lines, but it's always a specific version of that. For example, I know 2 people who have very similar heart virtues. So one person's heart virtue is being the love that results in honest connection. And then I know another person, her heart virtue is connecting to authentic connection with another person coming from my own authentic connection. So they're very similar, but it's your own specific flavor of it. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it so unique. And that's why I say that if there are 6 billion people, then there are 6 billion heart virtues. So it's very, very unique. But those people can then find each other if they're clear on their heart virtue. Yeah. They can then find similar, close to, with just that little bit of other flavor that adds to. Right. In a unique way that they aren't able to provide. Like you and I do that. Yeah. That's what we're doing with this interview.
Yeah.
Like I've got my part that I bring
Hmm.
that's connected to my heart virtue, and yours, the part you're bringing. I'm like, why don't I just talk to you about it? Because
Right.
you're going to bring your unique signature, your unique heart
Hmm.
virtue to it. But
Yeah.
it's the same. We're facing the same direction. We've
Yeah.
got the same vision. It's just if we can combine our efforts, if we can locate each other. You know, what did you say the other day? All we need are 5 people to change the world.
Right.
So
Exactly.
5 of us that are connected to our heart virtue, that know how to find each other, because we've got beacons out
Hmm.
of how we're living. It becomes clear to other people. Oh, there you are, there you are, there you are.
Yeah.
Now we're living it. We can find each other and we can lend each other our unique flavor.
Exactly. It's very powerful. Like even when it comes to friendships, it's very powerful because you end up aligning with people who have similar heart virtues, like naturally, even when it comes to your friendships and work relationships. That's true. Like, for example, recently I hired a female coach, and her heart virtue is something along the lines of overcoming obstacles so that you can reach your highest potential. So she helps me overcome my obstacles, being having her on my team, and
She's
she helps.
your Ganesh.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's what I told her. Yeah,
She's an elephant riding on a rat's back. Tell her that. She'll love that.
yeah. And then in my romantic relationship, I have what I call a muse-ship with this woman, and she's my muse. And that's why I call this a muse-ship, to really differentiate from traditional relationships models that I don't believe in, right? So I came up with my own model. And our heart virtues align very well because mine is that I am committed to experiencing divinity, sharing awakening, and bringing sovereignty back to all beings now and forever. And her heart virtue is that she's committed to the full experience of the now every moment.
Mm.
And so what happens when she and I are together is that she helps me be more present. And presence is the key to living your own awakening and divinity. In fact, there are times when I would go up into my head and she would gently ask me, like, what are you thinking? And I would suddenly have to connect back to her, you know, and then express what I'm thinking so that so it helps me reconnect back to her. And and when she's with me, she lives less from her own programming. She lives more from her waking state, and that helps her live in the now.
Right.
Helps her experience that full experience of the now that she wants to experience.
Okay, so I have one last question.
Yeah.
It should be obvious from what you just said
Yeah.
that more communion, more communication, more constructive living.
Hmm.
But I just want to speak the words that when you are connecting with people that have a similar vision in life and are connected to the heart virtue, there's going to be less jealousy, less possessiveness, less weirdness that even happens between friendships, where you're having to like tippy toe around about how much time you're spending with this person or that person, or a same sex friendship. That this seems like it would just really neutralize a lot of that pettiness of trying to control each other, possess each other. I mean, you said she's my muse, but I didn't feel that as an ownership in a
Right.
in a petty kind of way. It's just that she's uniquely connected to
Hmm.
where I need to be inspired,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so that, I mean, it would seem obvious that if that all that you just said opens up, the other stuff would drop away. The other stuff that we often get confused with, showing commitment, showing love, is that you'd be possessive, jealous, guarding what's yours in a certain, in a way that is not in alignment. It just wouldn't have to happen. All that stuff, that fear of loss that we get confused with love, seems like that would just drop away once you connect with your heart virtue. and you start connecting with other people that are connected in a similar way.
Yeah, because there's a sense that even if she chooses to love another man, or if I choose to love another woman, there is the sense that it's because we're all on the same mission.
Yeah.
Like we're all looking in the same direction.
And so you're just bringing in other resources and trusting that very automatically.
Yeah.
There's a book called The Speed of Trust.
Yeah.
And it makes me think of that.
It's written by Stephen Covey's son.
Yeah, Stephen M. Covey.
Yeah.
So the speed of trust that can have people that are connected to theirs, that are looking in the same direction with the same vision as you. It's quick. You can get so much done. So I think our screen locked up. Did you hear that last part?
I did. Yeah, it did lock up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but then it's very constructive because you have a speed of trust that's happening.
Yeah.
There's an instant, connecting to what you're saying. You don't have to come to, like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Like, all of that stuff just moves out of the way and you just can flow forward.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty beautiful and very possible. This isn't some pipe dream. You're living it. I'm living it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like for example, recently I met a new woman in my life, and she invited me to her shop where she works at. She kind of runs the shop and is trying to build it into a community. And I went there, and there was another guy, and the guy was kind of almost on the verge of an emotional breakdown, and I didn't know it at the time. But she said, I'm going to go cleanse him. And so she went there, and then it was almost like we both were trying to help him open up. And that's when he started, crying and stuff. And eventually she left the room, and I just kind of took over and, just helped him experience emotional alchemy and then help him go through that. And there was no jealousy on my part that she was helping another man and any of that. It was like, oh wow, she and I, even though I don't know her heart virtue yet, she and I are on the same mission of, the general mission of actually providing emotional stability as a lifestyle to everybody in the room, which is what you teach, right? And by the end of me helping him and telling him to go outside and just relax for a bit, and then I went back to her, I suddenly felt this surge of love for her, an increase of love that I hadn't felt before. At first it was just a mild interest in her, and then it was like, wow, you're wonderful. And I told her that, and we became closer because of that. It was just amazing and beautiful.
So what I see there is, instead of poisoning the waters, poisoning the relationship with ego,
Mm-hmm.
and a power struggle over, that's my client, no, that's my client, or that can happen, that brings the life into the room, mm-hmm. rather than the pettiness and the battling and the adversarial stuff. It's pretty powerful when it gets like that, and then it's an instant intimacy that can happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that sounds like, well, that's what happened there.
Yeah.
All right, so I know you've got a new program that you're working on, some coursework to help people connect with their heart virtue, and I'm pretty excited about it. Do you want to give a little information now about that and how to connect with you and your services and your coaching work?
Yeah, I want to do that. And before I do that,
okay, before you do that, destroy the room.
Yes, destroy the room, destroy the ego.
It's your massive ego.
So before I do that, I wanted to, we froze again. Can you hear me?
Okay.
So I wanted to talk about
technology,
the relationship between heart virtues and life purpose, and why,
okay,
especially for men, it's so important to know their heart virtue. I mean, it's important for everybody, but especially when it comes
Oh yes,
to
please
men.
speak to that because that's my thing. Helping
Right.
men with that. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to skip
So,
that.
yeah. So your heart virtue is the foundation of your life purpose. And your life purpose is your heart virtue in action. So that's how they relate to each other.
Okay.
So so your heart virtue goes deeper than your life purpose, but it actually contributes to your life purpose. So for example, in my case, my life purpose would be emotional alchemy, which is my heart virtue in action. That's how it shows up in the world every single moment of every day. It's not just with clients, but also with everybody in my life. Because your life purpose goes beyond career, right?
Yes.
And so why is that so important for men? Well, you and I both know that what a woman wants is to ride the roller coaster, right? And be the fuel for that roller coaster. She doesn't want to be the ride, she wants to be in the ride.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So she wants a mission, a life purpose that she can latch onto and support. And if a man doesn't even know what that is, then there is no attraction there at all.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why it's so important for a man to know his heart virtue. And there's a second reason why as well. And this is where your work and mine actually mesh and align really well. I teach what's called the three types of anger. And most people are very confused about anger, especially in the New Age community, where they think all anger is bad, right? And that's not true. There are actually three types of anger. The first is what I would call a temper tantrum, where you're angry because your buttons got pushed, your programming got triggered. So an example from my own life would be, I used to get really mad if I send a text to somebody and I don't get a response back the same day. So that's a really ridiculous reason to be angry, right? In retrospect. But in those days, I was like really convinced that I should be angry at this. And I started giving all these negative meanings to the event, such as this person's a jerk, this person's angry at me. When in reality, I could have given more neutral meanings, such as maybe their phone died, maybe they were in a meeting, maybe they were just busy, or maybe they didn't even know how to respond. Right? But one person told me that my text was too complicated to respond. So it's basically the meaning that I'm giving the event that caused me to get angry. But I can go even deeper. Why did I give it a negative meaning in the first place? It's because I already believed negative things about myself. So one way to find out what that belief is to keep asking myself, why does this bother me? Why does this bother me? In that case, what happened was, at first it was, oh, that person's a jerk. Why does that bother me? Well, now I feel disrespected. Why does that bother me? Well, now I'm feeling like I'm not worthy of respect. It was like, aha, that's the limiting belief, the virus of the mind right there. I already believe that about myself. And I use the situation to validate the belief. So that's how tricky this programming and ego is. That's what it does. So there is a temper tantrum. Then there's the second kind of anger, which is more valid. It's when your boundary has been broken. So for example, if I'm about to punch you in the face, even physically, that's a valid reason to be angry. And it doesn't have to be physical. It can be an emotional punch in the face, right? Then a boundary has been broken. Or if you told me that I'm not supposed to, that you don't want me to do something, that you had set a boundary and I did it anyways, right? That's a boundary being broken. That's a valid reason to be angry. Then there's the third type of anger that I call sacred rage. And that's when your heart virtue has been violated. You got angry because you were committed to something beautiful that got violated. Remember, this is something you're even willing to die for. It's that one thing that's non-negotiable, cannot be manipulated. And that's when you feel this intense rage. And it's very different from temper tantrums, because there is, even though there is so much intense energy, there's also a sense of clarity that comes with it,
Mm.
and purity in a sense, and power, and almost love in a way as well, even though it's so intense.
Yeah. Well, it's a loving, uh, behind it is a desire to clear that out.
Yeah.
Because if you can't clear it out, it keeps getting in the way of
Mhm.
being in a shared vision of moving things forward together.
Yeah.
And if you can't clear it out of the way, you're going to be stuck. And then you have to choose, do I cut this person out of my life because they're keeping me here stuck with them because we can't clear this out? And it's not a kind and loving thing to stagnate and force someone to stagnate with you. So when you rage it out, you're refining and purifying and getting it out. It really is a loving thing in that case, because it's keeping the stagnation from happening, which is a killer. It's a killer of passion. It kills love. Pure form love will die there. So you're being a good steward of the ultimate goal, which is to be facing forward, moving forward in a vision so that the world can be a better place. And sometimes that's what that takes, is going into this pure refining fire
Yeah.
of that rage.
Yeah.
Clears the way.
Yeah.
Clears the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's scary though.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, for example, I want to share an example from my own life that I've mentioned in a previous call, where, so when I was on this journey, when I started this journey of breakthrough awakening, I started with myself, with transforming myself first and healing my childhood wounds and removing my limiting beliefs. And I went through this intense transformation, and I felt that transformation needed to be reflected on my body physically as well, and that the people around me needed to see my transformation for it to be sustainable, in a sense, because otherwise they can keep me back in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started growing long hair and a long beard, and the people closest to me, predictably started resisting that and telling me to cut my hair. And at first I just said calmly, no, I like my hair the way it is. I didn't say anything. But eventually it came to this, an almost an insult statement that came from one of the people closest to me. And this was a relative that I was living with at the time. And she said, well, I want you to cut your hair because you look like an old man. Now, those were the words, right? But I'm very intuitive, right? So I could sense the energy beneath the words and where it came from. It came from her programming. She was used to me being her little boy. And what she actually meant was, now you look like a man, and I want you to keep looking like the little boy that you used to look like. And that was a direct validation of my heart virtue of awakening and divinity. She wasn't coming from her divinity or her awakening, because she wasn't after my highest good or even her highest good.
Right.
And I felt so much sacred rage at that. And at the same time, I just knew exactly what to do. I didn't even have to think about it. And I didn't even have to yell. I just said it very quietly. I said, don't ever say that again. And that was it. That was the end of that conversation.
And that's what I would call commanding presence.
Yeah.
Because when you can really tap into that, wow, this is a violation at a core level, at a heart level, at a, what I was born to be, which is grow up and be a man that lives his own life fully.
Yeah.
And that means you living out your purpose, your life purpose. And when something steps in front of that to attempt to be a knockdown or an obstacle, that's gonna well up in you. And you can say to yourself, wow, that's childish. I shouldn't, be upset about that. It's just a petty thing. They didn't mean it, whatever. Or you can really connect with that and very calmly, it's really almost a scary calm, in my work called being the bear in the meadow. Like a bear comes into the meadow and you're just like, la, 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 collecting your berries and your twigs and stuff. And bear comes and you're like, ooh, there's a bear. I think it could kill me. And it's just, you stand still and you get really keen. Your hearing gets keen. You perk up. All your attention is now on that, which might kill you, a grown-ass man who is more powerful. In that moment of clarity, it's like a fear of God kind of a thing almost in that moment, that commanding presence. So with authority, very quietly, you don't have to get all riled up. In fact, not getting riled up.
Right, and you don't even have to make any threats. It's the words alone, just 4 words alone are powerful because it comes from an inner power.
Right. And people can mimic this all they want. People do. They try to do this as a technique.
Yeah.
To like, I'm going to deepen my voice and say things very slowly. And it's okay, that might get you something. It might get you somewhere for a moment. But if you really want to contain it and really want to dissolve that so that it's not an obstacle that keeps popping up to you getting your work accomplished in the world, you really want to handle that as clearly and concisely and as powerfully as you can in that moment. And the only way to do that is from your heart virtue. Really. It's the most potent way. There's other forms of other ways. But once you get to that place, it's power. That's pure potency.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because what was I? I lost my train of thought.
Well, men. You started this by saying it's super important for men,
right,
to get a grip on this, and I think in just hearing your story and speaking it and feeling that potency, and then thinking about women wanting to be purposeful around a man's purpose. If you're not clear with us what that is, if you're not connected to that, if you can't help us go from la 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 all over the place like women are, to capturing our attention like that, with that level of potency, that penetrating power, and that where we go and we focus in, like, oh yeah, I forgot. I want to be powerful in connection to his power. I want to be purposeful around his purpose. Shoot, I got all distracted over here with shiny objects. He pulled me back in. I'm back on the ride with him.
Right, thanks. And now I remember what I was going to say. So for you to get to that level of potency and attraction with a woman, you have to know your heart virtue. Not only that, to know the difference between sacred rage and a temper tantrum, you have to know your heart virtue.
Yes.
Otherwise, you wouldn't know the difference. In fact, for people who don't know the difference, the temper tantrum and the sacred rage comes in together, mixed up. So it's very confusing.
And then you shame and guilt yourself later because you act badly and, oh my gosh, I can't believe I lost my shit like that.
Right.
And I got emotional. Oh, I was acting like a girl having a fit, And once you can differentiate the two.
Yeah.
life gets really clear, really good, really powerful. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, how are we going to get people there? We've got to move some people through this process. Great teachers break it down into digestible pieces, little steps for people to practice so they can get to a deep place of knowing.
Yeah.
So I know I've got my programs. Tell me what you have coming up for this particular piece.
Awesome. So I'm so glad you brought this up, because there is a way that you can get into the general theme or the general direction of your heart virtue, the top layers of the onion, on your own, using this process that I'm about to tell you. However, the best way is to have a one-on-one session with a coach, because to get into the deepest layer of the onion, the core value, you need to get past the blind spot, and only a coach can really take you past it. You need somebody to hold your hand and take you there. However, to prepare for a session with a coach, and even to get into the general direction and at least get to the core values, if not their exact heart virtue, here's a powerful way. What you do is you write down first a list of all your goosebump moments.
All your goosebump moments.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the moments in your life when you felt so happy that you had chills and goosebumps and even tears in your eyes. Not the crying kind of tears, but more like teary-eyed, almost in the back of your eyes, that kind of feeling moved. And usually, and even then, like, some people find it difficult to remember those moments. So what I tell them is, try to remember a movie that you watched that moved you deeply, a movie scene. That makes it easier for people. Because there's always a movie that describes your heart virtue, or at least a movie scene.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a friend of mine's heart virtue is honoring the truth within. And his movie is Dances with Wolves with Keanu Reeves. Because that whole movie is about honoring truth.
Kevin Costner.
Oh, Kevin Costner, right. Kevin Costner.
Dances with Wolves. Okay, got it.
So that's one way. The other way is to do the opposite. Write down a list of all your rage moments. And then ask yourself, what was being violated that made me so angry?
Yeah, that's a good one. And people can go to those much more easily.
Yeah. In fact, I do find consistently is that the rage moments are more easy to get into. Yeah.
Same thing when I'm working with men and I'm helping them understand female psychology and testing.
Yeah.
Like checking to see, who are you? What is, have you got my back? Checking in with him to see if he's a protector provider or a threat right then, because threat means he's out of alignment with his heart purpose and his life purpose. So men that have women that have really checked out and gone very neutral and become like glorified roommates, they really struggle to find those moments when she's checking in with him to see who he is.
Mm-hmm.
She just doesn't care anymore. She's not checking in very much anymore. But the men that have women that are like throwing furniture and screaming things and everything, they can find really easily. We can line up a couple hundred pretty quickly of those moments when she's pressing into him to ask him, who are you? Just in a crazy space. So this very raw, real, easy to identify, overt way. And then there's a more subtle that you've got to be in touch with yourself and the situation way. So I can see how the process would be easier to get in touch with the rage and anger versus the when you felt moved and you were welling up.
Right. Yeah.
So you're going to go through, you're going to have a prep pack, like a preparation to help people move through some of this.
Yeah.
To prepare to work with you directly.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. See, I just started doing that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, it works so beautifully. People really maximize their experience with a coach if they've done this preparation stuff first. So it's smart. It's very smart. I'm patting myself on the back while I say that to you.
Yeah, in fact, this video will be part of the prep pack.
Yes, good. Well, I'm really happy we got this time.
Yeah.
Create so much clarity. I mean, just for me as a person, this is incredibly valuable. But me as a teacher, I can now take this out into the world since we have a shared vision and we're facing the same direction.
Yeah.
And we can both put this out there and help even more people and really get people into a place where they're able to process their emotional lives and live more meaningful lives. And that's pretty awesome. That might be my heart virtue. Pretty cool. All right. How can people get hold of you?
They can go to my website, breakthrough.space.
What is it?
It's called breakthrough.space.
Okay. Got it.
And that forwards them to my landing page where they can get a lot of gifts in return. The main thing they'll get is a video report on the new relationship model that I've created, what I described earlier, the muse ship, and the 4 steps to to create a muse ship. And they'll get a bunch of other videos and audios as well.
Okay, definitely. People are going to want to tap into those goodies. There's free goodies. Go for it.
Free. Yeah.
Go there and get them. Okay, cool. Do you have anything else you want to add, or should we just kind of end this here and let people start going through the materials?
Yeah, have people start going through the materials. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Check out the rest of it and give us feedback. We'd love to hear from you on Facebook, right?
Yes, I have a Facebook myself. It's Breakthrough Awakening Kundan, or Kundan Chopra. That's how you find me.
Okay. And Michelle Terrell, the Pistol Whip Hippie, signing off.
All right. Have a wonderful day. Bye.